Travis Wayne Goodsell, we got breaking LDS news an hour ago. I'm seeing it on the Microsoft Edge news feed thing. I'm saving another video in the process. So here's the news. Mr. James Huntsman is suing the church, demanding his tithing back. The church responded. The news is about the church's response to his lawsuit against the church. Wow, other people are doing it. Good for you guys. Good for you, Mr. Huntsman. Mr. James Huntsman? What movie is that from? Pelican Brief. Yeah. The assassin was given instructions with a door knock and a coded message between the two. Yeah. Anyway, Eric Hawkins is the spokesperson for this, for the church, and he says, Mr. James Huntsman resigned his church membership last year. Now he is demanding through his lawyers that tithing be paid to the church as charitable contributions be returned to him. See how he worded that? Charitable contributions, my ass. He claims that contrary to assurances made by past church president Gordon B. Hinckley, the church used tithing to build City Creek, a mixed-use commercial development across the street from church headquarters in Salt Lake City. In fact, tithing was not used on the City Creek project. They have many other investment companies. They don't have to use tithing. As President Hinckley said in the April 2003 general, and that may ruin you, James, Mr. James Huntsman, is you have to get your facts correct. Just say that you want your tithing money back. Because it's a protection racket. You have to understand it's a protection racket. We are required to pay our dues in order to go to the temple. Don't get caught up in thinking that, it's most likely taken for the City Creek Mall and blah blah blah. They're gonna get you and they're gonna win. So stop it. Stick to the truth. It's a protection racket. It's a crime. The FBI needs to be involved, but the Utah FBI are all Mormon. The video's now done. Okay. I'm still working on the picture. Maybe I can just use it as is. Mormon spiritual witness is of the devil. Mormon spiritual witness is of the devil. It's the devil! Water boy. Mama said it's of the devil. I like Vicky. She. In fact, tithing was not used on the City Creek project, as President Hinckley said in the April 2003 General Conference of the Church. The funds came from commercial entities owned by the church. Ta-da! The church is $5.4 trillion filthy rich with their liquid assets. That was my estimate, according to the Ensign Peak Associate whistleblower, and what the church's response to him was. And so, yeah, they took it from other investment companies to pay that. And thus, they're now using the City Creek Mall income for another investment company, which has most likely already paid itself off with the others that they paid back and blah, blah, blah. And earnings of invested revenue reserve funds. Bingo! See? The church is busted here, and he's not doing it right. A similar statement was made by President Hinckley in October 2004 General Conference. Mr. James Huntsman's claim is baseless, and most likely they filed no claim upon which relief may be granted, because that's what they do to all of them, and because it's most likely U.S. District Court. Yeah. Oh, District of California. Oh. No Mormon judges there. Good man. That was smart. But you got to tell the truth, because even though the church is forced to prove themselves here, yeah, they're not going to fall for no claim upon which relief may be granted. Yeah, good man. Let's see. Here they go into tithing funds are voluntary contributions by members. It's number 10 on the interview questions. He just lies. Number 10. As an expression of their faith? No, it's extorted in order for us to go to the temple. It's a protection racket. They are used for a broad array of religious purposes. Oh, they've expanded it. Religious purposes including missionary work, education, humanitarian causes, and the construction of meeting houses, temples, and other buildings important to the work of the church, as reflected in Scripture and determined by church leaders, as reinterpreted by church leaders. You're not even supposed to pay tithing if you work for somebody else. It's supposed to be 10% of your interest annually. Wages are not interest. Your ownership in a company gets the interest. That's the difference. But it can't be a company where there are other CEOs and all that stuff. You've got to be the big head guy in charge of it all that gets the money for himself. And you just put it into the business. Like the olden days where you were a merchant of some kind, or a maker of shoes or other clothing or food. You're the one who made them, you're the one who's selling them. You're the one who gets the profit, thus the interest. Has nothing to do with our current stock market interest. That's gambling. Anyway. Man, that really pissed me off, Eric Hawkins. Little piece of... James Huntsman, the brother of former Utah Governor John Huntsman Jr., as I found out when I did the A through G of ex-Mormons video, I found out he had left the church as well. So that's interesting. So it doesn't surprise... Well, James Huntsman started longer. It's interesting. He stayed in longer. Suing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, alleging it fraudulently spent millions of dollars in tithing meant for charity on commercial purposes. Yeah. You complicated that, Mr. James Huntsman. Protection racket. Focus on protection racket. They force us to pay in order to play. It's extortion. A lawsuit was filed in California. Washington Post was the first to report on it. Huntsman said in the complaint that he wants millions of dollars of his donations back. Must be nice. And plans to give the money to organizations and communities whose members have been marginalized by the church's teachings and doctrines. Oh. That's interesting. Including by donating to charities supporting LGBTQ. You're supposed to add IA plus, I understand, African American and women's rights. Okay, I see what he's doing, and he's getting press for it, so good for him. But again, protection racket. That gets the FBI involved. The Department of Justice, the brand new Attorney General, now gets to be involved. You get to call it a RICO case. So, yeah. This comes 16 months after a former high-level investment manager with the church filed a whistleblower complaint. There he is. Collecting $100 billion in accounts intended for charitable uses and misled members, amassing surplus donations. Yeah. But that's not quite... He doesn't quite understand what the whistleblower was pointing out. The whistleblower was pointing out that all the tithing revenue that was turned in each year, 10% was taken out into this investment company, Ensign Peak Associates. That 10% has now accumulated, along with a $40 billion portfolio, $150 billion in 2019. It gets interest of $7 billion because of the interest rate that they're in the investment company with. And so $7 billion a year is added, and of course it goes up the more money is added to the pot. And last year, the portfolio portion of $40 billion had increased in the stock market another $6 billion for last year. They profited off of us in the stock market, which is a gambling institution, and got an additional $6 billion on top of the $7 billion for the end of 2019 and the end of 2020. And so we're looking at $170 billion in Ensign Peak Associates alone. They're closing in on $200 billion. They have dozens of investment companies that they invest in. No one source of income or no one investment company shares more than just one source of income. Each gets a different investment company, so that no one investment company knows the total asset value of the church, only the one that they're in charge of. And so he's correct that the church invests in commercial entities, but that's only 10%. And according to the law, IRS laws on charity, they can do that. But where the spokesperson is lying, it's not a voluntary donation. It is not a free will offering. It is forced. You get punished in the Mormon church if you do not pay your tithing. Because you can say, well, I don't want to pay because I don't care if I don't go to the temple. That's all right. Well, you don't get a calling in the church then. You don't get to participate in church. You're allowed to go to church. You're allowed to sit there and listen. But you can't do anything in the church. They won't give you the priesthood. You need to have the priesthood in order to participate in the church. So you don't get to go to the temple, you don't get the priesthood, you don't get sealed for time and all eternity. Yeah. It is not voluntary. And James, please turn the focus. All right, James. Okay, so that's the late breaking news. We'll put it up here for you. They're just, I can't get the FBI to respond. What does it take? The new Attorney General now. Get the church. Shut them down again. Remember the Edmunds-Tucker Act did it. This is a criminal operation, guys. I should probably add, with the Enzyme Peak Associates, that the whistleblower was claiming that even the investment companies themselves are under the same obligation in the Articles of Incorporation to be charitable, which means that the investment is supposed to be used for charity, and instead the investment from tithing is only used for amassing wealth, just like the other investment companies. So yes, the church is involved in tax evasion and insurance fraud and other stuff involving a criminal financial crime situation. So in that sense, he is correct, but he's wrong if he says that the other 90% was misused and allocated to commercial purposes. No. This is how the church does it. They get other people to pay, but then invest in it, in what they get. So that the church never spends a penny of anything. The City Creek Mall was an investment. You know, even the Salt Lake Temple, yeah, that was an investment. However, they were given $32 billion to do that temple from Russia. I've done those videos. There's a lot going on that they're not telling us, but I've exposed, and they're mad. And they've been trying to assassinate me before, but yeah, but that's another story.